I often hear business travelers say it's really hard to get their protein in on the go and on their work trips, but fundamentally feeling better, staying sharp, and avoiding crashes don't require completely overhauling your travel plans. In fact, you really won't have to change much at all. I've tested this on myself on dozens of trips, and in this video, I'm going to give you 4 simple strategies to increase your protein without adding extra hassle to your already busy days. All right, so let's play this out real quick. So let's say you're going to the gas station and your car requires unleaded fuel. You're not going to intentionally put diesel fuel in your car when obviously it needs unleaded fuel. Or let's say you have a luxury car and it requires premium fuel. You're not going to put the lower grade fuel because obviously you know what it requires to perform its best. So the question then becomes, fundamentally when we break it down, is it really hard, or are we using that as an excuse for not making choices mindfully to fuel ourselves when it is in our control? And that takes us to the first strategy, okay? And this is to control our breakfast. And the reason I say this is because almost always when you're on work travel, this is going to be the meal that we can control the most. Typically, if we're going to have catered food, it's going to be lunches. And, if we have dinners, it'll typically be team dinners or client dinners, going to a restaurant. But breakfast is usually either, you get to the site or wherever you're going, the client visit, whatever, either they'll have something available like coffee or whatnot. But before that, you're going to be staying in a hotel. That's one of the luxuries of going on business travel, is you're going to have hotel breakfast almost always. And with that, if you dedicate some time, if you're already going to be at breakfast, then you'll have foods like eggs, like yogurt, like cheese, milk. That's almost at continental breakfast across the board. Okay, obviously they'll have, bagels, muffins, all that stuff. But if we can at least control the first meal of the day, then it sets us up for success. What most travelers end up doing is they'll have low protein breakfasts and then they'll have a really carb heavy lunch and dinner, and that's what's going to cause you to overeat and then have those crashes. You might start your day with sweets and coffee, and then by 2 p.m. you're starving, you're foggy, and you just grab whatever's around, and that cycle is going to kill your energy and your focus. And then on top of that, you overcompensate with caffeine. I'm guilty of this as well. There is some time where I'm like, shoot, like I'm feeling like crash. I need that extra caffeine, that extra kick to just be, socially and mentally sharp enough to present or whatever it is that I'm doing. So that's why if we can take control of our breakfast, have a higher protein meal, keep it lower on the carbs, you're going to feel so good. And, one of the strategies here as well is, let's say you're just having coffee. One of the things I love to do is I will grab an espresso. So I'll get a double espresso, and then I will go and get a protein shake from either the hotel lobby or, typically there's a convenience store around. And what I'll do is I'll just put the protein shake in the espresso and it becomes a protein mocha. So that'll be either vanilla or chocolate. By the way, don't do this with strawberry. I tried that once and it was disgusting. So just do it with vanilla or chocolate. And I kid you not, it tastes like a mocha, especially if you use a brand like 𝗏𝗏, one of these popular ones. So that is the first strategy. Okay, so that takes us to number 2, which is pack for success. Okay, so we just talked about how we want to front load our protein, and if we don't have the opportunity to make mindful choices at lunch or at dinner, is we can pack for success. Okay, so I almost always carry either 1 protein bar per day or 1 protein powder pack per day, and I'll put a link in the description where you can get those. But this is so important because even if our trip gets crazy and let's say we actually don't have time for breakfast, or let's say we don't have a high protein option at the catered lunch, then at least we have something with us, like a bar or like some powder that we can supplement. You're gonna have a water bottle if you wanna just put some powder in that and chug that, or if you want to just have a protein bar after your lunch instead of going for the cookie, then it's just going to help us in the long run. So really important there to pack for success. It takes seconds. When you're putting stuff in your suitcase, just throw an extra protein bar per day. It really makes a big difference, especially if you're getting hungry throughout the day. Instead of reaching for what's going to cause you to have those energy crashes, those mental crashes, if you have something like this with you, then it just makes it so much easier. Side note, fiber is actually huge for helping to avoid the overeating and the crashes and everything if it's paired with the protein, but we'll talk about this in a separate video. So strategy number 3, and this applies specifically to business travelers, is you have per diem. Take advantage of your per diem. You're essentially flying for free. Everything is covered by the business card, and they're putting you in a hotel, which almost always is going to have a hotel gym. you're going to be able to have a certain allowance every day and, use that to our advantage. So when it comes to, grabbing these snacks or, making good choices at these lunches or these dinners, like we don't have to worry about cost being an issue. Ask for, double protein, or, at breakfast, get some extra eggs or whatever it may be. But we have the benefit of having that per diem where we don't have to stress about the financial aspect of that. And we want to take advantage of that. I mean, at the end of the day, because it is a great benefit that we can really use. And then that takes us to the fourth strategy, which is ordering smart, okay? So why do I say this? We all have food every single day, and some people are going to have different outcomes when it comes to body composition, body weight, how your energy is. That's because of what we put into our body. And if we want to feel and perform our best, even if it's not at every meal, we want to order smart at the meals we have most control over, okay? So we already talked about breakfast. Get some eggs, get some yogurt, get some cheese, get some milk, whatever it is. And, if need be, ask for a side of, an extra egg, or ask for some turkey bacon or whatever it is. At lunch or at dinner, I mean, obviously enjoy yourself, enjoy your food. But that being said, because we have the per diem, because we have the ability to typically, eat at places that have good options, don't be afraid to, order the salmon. Don't be afraid to order the steak. There's a lot of these restaurant grade dishes that are really high quality, and you'll still be able to enjoy your food and hit your protein. Kind of going back to what I was saying earlier when it comes to our lunches, typically we're going to have sweets. They'll either put candies or cookies or something like that out there. And if we do, even if we have a sandwich or something for the actual meal, if we have that protein bar with us, it'll help to kind of compensate for that sweet craving that we might have. And then at dinner, we can, instead of functioning emotionally, we'll be able to actually make the choice that's going to help us feel our best, right? And it's not like we're going to be sacrificing flavor, because if you're going out to a restaurant, it's going to taste good regardless. That's number 4. The last thing is a bonus. You're not alone. If you're part of the 𝗏𝑇ivity community, then you're part of a network of people who are trying to better themselves on their business travel, on their trips around the world, internationally or domestically. And we can feed off of each other's energy and our habits that we're putting into place to actually improve ourselves. That's why having that community is so important, because then you're surrounded by like-minded individuals who don't want to settle for having those crashes, who don't want to settle for feeling terrible and having to overcompensate. And you have all the resources available to you. So either talk one-on-one with your coach, or use our AI health buddy to bounce ideas back and forth on what can I do in this situation. We've trained it in a way where it understands these case studies from clients, real world scenarios, to actually help you and give you specific, tangible advice to help you. So you're never alone. You can always bounce ideas back off of the community chat to your coach, to the health assistant, and it really helps to have that as a resource to help you and really not feel isolated in this journey. So again, this is a lifelong journey. It's not only going to be just on our trips. Obviously, what we want to do is set up a sustainable plan so that when you're home, you can actually take those good habits. And if we're able to master these habits when things are crazy, then when we're actually home, it's going to make things so much easier, okay? So just to recap, some key takeaways: control your breakfasts, usually almost always, unless you're flying in that day. That is the meal we have the most control over. Front load that protein when needed. Pack for success. This takes 2 seconds to throw things into your backpack or your suitcase. Take advantage of your per diem. Order smart when you have the ability. And bonus is don't do it alone. Be part of the community, engage with your coach, with the community, and it really helps to not feel isolated. So really hope this helps, and these small adjustments, will make a big difference in the long run. So we'll see you in the next video.